The good news is we're all in this together. And when we see we're together, we can work things out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey, professional curmudgeon, and the famous Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh, a professional philanthropist. And we are both of us have backgrounds in engineering, although my background is a little different from Tom's. It means that we know what numbers are. I start every day at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I put together, just because I can't sleep any longer than that because I'm getting old, I put together a list of about 10 to 15 articles that for each I put together a 50 or so word synopsis, and a link to the original article, and then I post those at geoharvey.com, GEOHARVEY. And I've been doing that, every day. It's every day you can go there. It's always new stuff. And I try to make things as interesting as I can, as informative as I can for readers, and as accurate as I can. And then Tom and I get together on this show once a week. And you can go to the blog, geoharvey.com, click on the date that we give you for the article, and you can get to the original article that way.
Well, this is useful because some of these articles are well written and in depth.
We've got some great ones this week.
We could spend the whole show on maybe just one of these articles, so
but
we don't have time.
What I want to do is I want to start off on something that isn't on the blog at all, although it will be coming up in the future because I'm going to make it into news. I can do that. I'm allowed.
Do we have a special video? Or
no, there's no video. There's no picture, but I hope there will be in time because this is going to be a really good story, I think.
Well, it's local, it's down home, but yet it's very timely.
Well, you might remember that a few weeks ago we had a thing come up about a GoFundMe site to provide solar power for people in Puerto Rico.
Absolutely, I remember that.
That came from Sunnyside Solar. Joseph Mangum, who is in Brattleboro here, runs Sunnyside Solar. And I got an email from him today, and I want to read the email. And what he says is, George, I leave for Boston tomorrow, Friday, October 27th, and for San Juan, bright and early Saturday morning, we are bringing 5 solar generators with us.
Bingo.
Okay, now he's had
Brattleboro's Elon Musk.
Yeah, 5 solar generators. He's so far had $5,000 in donations. So he's giving these people 1 solar generator for each $1,000. I want to point that out because it means the money is well spent.
Now, is it just a solar generator
It's a solar generator set. Each is 1 kilowatt with a battery and an AC inverter.
Okay.
This is a really good deal.
It's a very useful item.
This is mind-bogglingly low prices. Mind-bogglingly low. Well, part of the reason is because Joseph is putting in his own time, probably for free. But even if he's paid very little, and in this thing he's losing money because he's paying for a lot of stuff himself. He's taking with him 2 high-volume water purifier pumps, 150 live straws, 20,000 seeds to replant agriculture, big problem, 20 individual food bags consisting of 5 pounds of rice, a pound of dried beans, a pound of dried lentils, 4 packages of instant mashed potatoes, 2 of tuna canned, and 1 small bag of dried fruit. And he says he wishes he could take more, but he's just got so much room on this plane that he can go down in. The current itinerary is to get the gensets delivered during the week. We're going to go into the mountains in Central Island where the going will be tough. He's going to be meeting with mayors of local communities. One of the things that he told me is that one of these gensets, just to give you an idea, is going specifically to not to the town's mayor or the town's richest guy, but to the local guy who fixes things.
Okay.
Because
The fix-it man.
the fix-it man, because his tools are power tools. You see,
Okay.
and it means that he's going to be able to fix more, which is something they need.
Yeah, that's good thinking.
What he's trying to do is he's trying to target these things to people who need them, not to people who have a lot of money, but people who need them. And of course, there's a lot of people.
That's not the way we do things in this country.
There's a lot of people in Puerto Rico who are taking power and batteries down there and selling them. And that's not bad, but the people who are in greatest need are not the people getting the gensets. Joseph is making sure that the people who are getting them, the people who are benefiting the most, are the people who need them the most. And in the case of the local fix-it guy, he needs it the most because he needs to help other people. So
I think he's thought this through pretty well.
he's done this pretty well. He says he's going to be there for 3 weeks, and the island is almost dark. No safe water outside of a bottle to drink, no communications, certainly a limited window for email. So I've told him I want him to email me every time he can. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put together communications packages, little communication packages, which I'll try to get up at every site that I am associated with. And I'll put them together on a weekly basis if I can. I don't know, he may be out of communications for over a week, but I'll try to get that into the Commons and into Green Energy Times and whatever I can do to Clean Technica so that we can get as many people seeing what's actually going on in Puerto Rico as possible, and so that we can hopefully fund more of these things. Because if you can give a person a solar generator kilowatt for a dollar a watt, that is mind-bogglingly low price.
Absolutely.
And that is with battery backup.
As you know, if you watch this show.
Yeah. I mean, that is the price for utility scale, the cheapest solar power without the battery. And Joseph is undercutting the entire world on that. So there we go. I think we should start with the news.
Well, I see this being a big opportunity to come up with a distributed grid that works.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's people out there already going like this. Oh man, we can make. Matter of fact, we'll talk about
that. We will talk about it. Oh, there is a huge story.
I want to throw up about that story.
There is a huge story this week about things going on in Puerto Rico, which is probably the single most blatant piece of corruption I've ever heard of. And on top of everything else, it's being treated as though it's normal by a lot of people.
Unfortunately, it is normal.
Not that level of blatancy is not normal. And it is so closely connected to Donald Trump and his Interior Secretary and so forth and so forth.
We'll do it. Let's get started on it.
Let's start on Thursday, October 19th. Okay. Today is the 26th. We always start a week before.
So we're going to be talking about Puerto Rico. Let's start with the picture of Puerto Rico.
Well, by golly, what a piece of news. Okay, we have a picture, don't we? You just said so.
Yeah.
That's Puerto Rico.
Whoop. Wrong picture.
Tom will put it up. Should I read the headline while you're putting it up?
There it goes.
A more climate resilient Puerto Rico? Question mark.
This is a good article.
Yeah.
This is one you should look up.
Absolutely. This is from the Yale Climate Connections. And the synopsis is, as Puerto Rico faces a devastating humanitarian crisis, an emerging viewpoint is that the island should think twice about restoring its electrical system. Remember that. Yeah, it should think twice. Yeah. As it's existed in the past. Instead of this reasoning goes, Puerto Rico should plan on a more resilient and distributed infrastructure.
Well, that's it. That's it. And if they do it, it'll be very beneficial.
It'll be a whole lot better for them than the alternative.
I'll give you a little background here in case you're not following this stuff. The island's electricity infrastructure was already in bad shape.
Terrible
before Hurricane Maria.
Yeah.
And this was due to austerity on the part of the government. And the austerity is probably because, and I'm stretching it a little bit, but Puerto Rico's been systematically looted for the last 50 years.
Nobody has cared about Puerto Rico except the Puerto Ricans, and it's part of the United States. I knew a lot of guys who were from Puerto Rico. They were the best workers I ever worked with, and there were people who were in the U.S. military. I mean, servicemen should be given credit for their service, shouldn't they?
Sure
Really?
They should, absolutely.
I'd go to Puerto Rico and retire there, except for one thing, which is that I don't think I could stand the heat.
You don't speak Spanish.
I don't mind not speaking Spanish. They would deal with me with no problem. A lot of them speak English. I'd get on fine, but I wouldn't be able to stand the heat.
Well, getting back to the grid.
Yeah.
It was powered by number 6 bunker oil. You can't get anything worse. It's worse than tar sands. This is what they use to power these huge container ships.
Yeah,
and practically nothing else.
And the generators were on the south side of the island, and the people were on the north side. So these power lines had to cross the mountains, which is where Joseph is going, by the way. He told me there are towns he's planning on going to that you can't go to. Because
you can't get to.
You can't get, it's like you can't get there from
You're
here.
in the middle of nowhere.
And every bridge is down.
Nowhere is nowhere.
And every bridge is down, and he's planning on going there. And, okay.
Well, I compare what he's doing on a little scale to what Musk is doing on a larger scale.
Yeah.
Very similar.
Except that Elon Musk is doing, Elon Musk donated that system at the Children's Hospital, I'm told, but the rest of the work he's doing.
He's made some pretty good donations.
He has, but he's down there for pay.
Oh, yeah.
Joseph is down there to save people.
Well, his wife is from there.
His wife is from there, and actually I asked him where she came from, and it's a small community in the eastern part of the state, but well into the interior. And so she's pretty well connected in those, and so is he in those areas. We should get on.
Well, I was looking to see how big Puerto Rico really is.
Yeah.
And the best thing I could come up with is the same size as Massachusetts if you cut off Cape Cod.
Yeah.
And almost the same shape.
Yep. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah.
Our next item is from Microgrid Knowledge.
What is electricity resilience worth to you?
Power outages are a nuisance to some, an economic burden to others, and even lethal in some cases. It is impossible to place a price on electric resilience that could be applied to everyone. So it's crucial that customers know what a power loss could cost them as they weigh the need for microgrids.
Well, just to bring people up to snuff here, resilience is the ability to withstand or bounce back from an outage. Network downtimes, natural disasters, and external attacks are increasing the need for grid-connected facilities to become more independent.
Right. Now,
more resilient.
One of the things that an easy way to point this out is you get hit by a hurricane, the local town gets hit by a tornado, the lights are out, there's a flood, the lights are out, there's a fire, the lights are out. How would it be to be in a house with no light, no heat, no electricity?
Kind of inconvenient.
Kind of inconvenient at best. Now, what if you were in that position and I offered you a flashlight?
I'd be better off.
You'd be grateful for a flashlight.
Absolutely.
Okay, what we're talking about here with resilience is not just a flashlight. It's not just a flashlight and a radio. It's almost returning to normal conditions.
Well, what this article is trying to tell us, that we take resilience for granted.
Yeah.
And we really should put a monetary value on it because it's valuable to us.
Yes, absolutely. We have to move on. I spent a lot of time talking about Joseph, and I think that was worthwhile, but we've got a lot to say.
We'll catch up.
This next item is from BBC News, and it is one of the most disturbing things I have seen.
Neat picture, though.
Neat picture, yes.
Alarm over decline in flying insects.
It is known that as the windscreen phenomenon. When you stop your car after a drive, there seems to be far fewer squashed insects than there used to be. Scientists have long suspected that insects are in dramatic decline, but new evidence confirms this. German research suggests that flying insects have declined by more than 75% in the last 30 years.
And at this time, the causes are unknown.
News. Yeah, well,
we've got we got
insecticides
something we can look at. What?
Monsanto?
Oh yeah, but they're not proven.
No, they're not proven.
So technically they're unknown.
A lot of it is use of fossil fuels. Well, this just reflects a reduction in the numbers of birds, and in the numbers of mammals, and in the numbers of fish, and in the numbers of amphibians and reptiles.
A lot of this stuff
Everything
going
is
on.
suffering.
A lot of this stuff
Everything
going
is
on.
suffering.
A lot of this stuff is going on.
We are up to Friday, October 20th, and we've got an item from Vermont Public Radio.
We're a little bit local here.
Yes.
Green Mountain Power eyes Panton, or is it Panton? For state's second commercial energy storage battery. And by the way, Panton, if that's the way you pronounce it, is a town on the lower part of Lake Champlain, about 30 miles south of Burlington.
Green Mountain,
I never heard of it before.
I had never heard of it either. Green Mountain Power wants to build Vermont's second commercial renewable energy storage battery near its solar array in Panton. The $3 million Tesla battery will store about 1 megawatt of power, which will come off the solar array nearby. The new battery will allow GMP to store renewable energy for helping meet peak grid demand.
This is going to be a pretty big assembly here.
Yes.
I mean, we both visited the one in Rutland.
I didn't.
Oh, didn't you?
I never did.
Went
no.
up there.
I know
it's
what it
right
looks
next to a large solar field.
Yes.
But they got about 4 or 5 trailers, or they're containers.
Yep.
You know.
This is about half that size.
And they're all full of batteries.
Yeah. This is about half that size. And honestly, I could see something like this in almost every community in Vermont.
Well, I would say that Green Mountain Power is aware of that, and it would be to their benefit to do so. So they're going to be moving towards something like this.
Right.
Let's move on.
Our next item is from the Edge Markets MY.
Renewable energy threatens the world's biggest science project.
This is funny. Assembly of the ITER reactor, a nuclear fusion project costing 20 billion euros, which is $24 billion, will begin in France in May of 2018, but with wind farm developers starting to promise subsidy-free power by 2025 and electricity demand stagnating, even the project's supporters are asking whether ITER will ever make sense.
Well, they've been working on fusion for 50 years, and
Longer
they're not
than
there
that.
yet.
They started working on fusion just about when I was born.
Well, probably they did, but I recall, long time ago, probably 50 years ago.
Yeah.
I was living in Princeton, New Jersey, and a friend of mine was working for a company doing fusion.
Yeah.
Okay, and I asked him, I said, why did they come up with a Manhattan Project or something like that to get this done in a few years instead of the 20, 30 years you're projecting? And he said, couldn't be done. There are steps that have to be done that aren't going to be able to be accelerated by throwing a lot of money at them.
Yeah.
One step after another.
Yeah.
And he was talking then, maybe 20 years in the future.
Yep.
And it's now maybe 50 years in the future.
Yeah.
They still haven't done it.
Well, one of the things that I want to mention about fusion power, and I'm not particularly against fusion power for any particular reason, but people think of it as being dependent on what's the source of power? Water. We've got, for practical purposes, an infinite supply of fuel. No, we don't have an infinite supply of fuel.
They do on the moon.
No, the problem with a fusion reactor is that it isn't water that goes in there. It isn't hydrogen. It's 2 specific isotopes of hydrogen.
Yeah.
And if you have water that's made up with one of them and oxygen, it's going to cost you about $3,500 a liter. And if
Unless you get it from the moon. It's up there.
Okay. And if you have the other one plus, that's deuterium and oxygen. If you have tritium oxide, which is the other, it costs you about $3.5 million a liter. This is not
very practical.
The only way you can get tritium is by making it with a nuclear reactor. Okay. No, you could probably make it with a fusion reactor.
Fusion
somehow.
was probably a good idea at one time, but it's just not going to be.
The only thing fusion has ever been used for has been the manufacture of hydrogen bombs. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that it's ever going to go anywhere. And part of the reason for that is because renewable energy prices are getting so low, which is what this article is about.
That's what it's about, exactly.
It just doesn't make all that much sense. Okay, so should we move on?
Yeah, we got another picture here.
We've got a picture of a landscape in Inner Mongolia. There it is.
I'm having trouble getting the picture up.
That's okay. This is from Yahoo News.
Pollution's annual price tag? $4.6 trillion and 9 million dead.
Pollution in all its forms killed 9 million people in 2015 and by one measure led to economic damage of $4.6 trillion. According to a new estimate by medical researchers who hope to put health costs of toxic air, water, and soil higher on the global agenda.
By the way, 9 million is about the population of New Jersey.
Yeah, but you know what? That 9 million people are killed by pollution of all forms, which means soil pollution, water pollution, indoor air pollution, outdoor air pollution. Indoor air pollution could be mold in your walls. But outdoor air pollution is a little bit less than half of the total. And that is driven almost entirely by the fossil fuels industry in one form or another. Almost everything that...
Yeah, power production and automobiles.
Automobiles, power production, heat, oil for heat. And the list kind of goes on.
Well, as we've talked on this show several times, we need to illuminate the hidden health and economic consequences of harmful substances introduced into the environment by human activity.
Right. And, we could ask, what does this mean in terms of locally? Okay. About 4.5, I think it was 4.2, I don't remember, but it might have been 4.5 million people a year by outdoor air pollution. And the MIT study we talked about was 200,000 Americans every year. And my recollection is that somebody told me that it was 400 people in Vermont, which makes sense in terms of those numbers.
That's about right.
If it's 400 people in Vermont, then in our community of 12,000 people, it's going to be about 4 people die. 4 people we know in Brattleboro die every year because of air pollution and health problems relating to it. So this is something, and of course it's destroying birds, bats, bobcats, bears, you name it. We can go through the alphabet.
The major barrier to deal with this has been political, not scientific.
Yeah, it's been paid for by people whose profits are threatened by the idea that we give up fossil fuels.
Oh no. Conspiracy theory.
That's not a conspiracy theory, I'm afraid.
It's a conspiracy, but it's not a theory.
That's right. The only thing that's a theory is why they're doing it, and I can guess it's greed, but that's the theory part. Should we move on?
Yeah, we've got a Swiss nuclear plant we're going to talk about.
Yeah, from Power Engineering International.
It's set for flexible operation after an upgrade. We've got to understand what flexible operation is.
This is interesting. A nuclear power plant in Switzerland is set to operate flexibly after software upgrade. The 1,010 megawatt Gersgen pressurized water reactor plant can vary its output between 50% and 100% of its installed capacity, with power ramp-ups of 30 megawatts a minute. That's pretty fast, responding to changing supply and demand.
So what they're doing now that they hadn't been able to do is incrementally change what this thing is generating.
Yep.
Prior to this, it was either on or it was off.
Yep, and you hear about people saying, well, the big problem with renewables is that the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. Well, the answer to that, and it's a legitimate answer, is the big problem with coal, natural gas, and nuclear in big plants.
You can't shut them.
You can't turn them down.
Yeah.
You need to get that power out, put it on the grid, even if nobody wants it. You got to figure out something to do with it, and that's a problem.
That's been normal for so long. We don't even look at it anymore.
Absolutely. So we are up to Saturday, October 21st.
Yeah, we got another picture.
We have another picture there.
Let me find.
And this is an item from WRVO Public Media, which I'm assuming is in New York State.
Yeah, it's
a good guess.
Oh, it is. I think it's in Syracuse.
Oh, okay. That, by the way, is not the sea in the background. Those are mountains in the distance.
That's not nice image, but it's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Madison County to get more power from solar, and Madison County is a county between Syracuse and Utica.
It's right smack dab in the middle of New York State.
Yeah. Yep.
The sun will be the source of electricity for about 70% of the government complex in Madison County, New York, from now on. tucked between some cornfields and brush in rural Madison County Road, on a rural Madison County Road, are more than 7,500 ground-mounted solar panels. They will save the county $3 million over the next 25 years.
That's worth looking at.
That, by the way, is the array. I don't know if you caught properly what I had just said. That the background is not the sea; it's the mountains.
Oh, that is really the array. Let me pull it up again.
It looks like the sea, and somebody said to me,
"It's Cayuga Lake."
No, it's not. Those are the mountains in the background.
Okay.
I used to live on a mountaintop. I know what it looks like.
What we're looking at looks like a lake.
It does.
The solar.
It's the thing in the far background is not a lake. It is the mountains.
Mountains. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Should we move on?
I think so.
We've got an item from Ward's Auto.
Let's
about Nissan.
Nissan vehicle-to-grid program spreading in Europe.
Nissan,
this is a good program.
Yeah, Nissan will roll out its vehicle-to-grid energy program, promising the average customer will enjoy virtually free home electricity. What do you think of that? The scheme, announced at an event in Oslo, was tested in Denmark and is to begin its European rollout next year. The trial, involving a fleet of ENV 200 vans, resulted in weekly revenue of 40 euros, which is about $47 per vehicle. So if you have a car, you can get paid by the utility to use
your car as a battery.
To use your car as a battery, so they can charge it at night and discharge it if it's plugged in at peak demand times.
Well, this makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Distributed batteries.
And one of the things that we found out from a test a couple of weeks ago, it's kind of vague in the memory, but there was a report that we gave, indicated that one of the outcomes of this test was an understanding that doing this extended the lives of the batteries.
That's encouraging.
It's counterintuitive, but it is.
Well, you got to exercise these things. I mean, if you leave batteries in a flashlight for a long enough time, they don't work anymore.
Yeah, they'll destroy the flashlight.
I would bet my left arm that Green Mountain Power is looking into this very deeply.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I
think that's a safe bet. Even though it's your arm you're betting, I think it's a safe bet. Okay, we're up to Sunday, October 22nd, and we have another picture, which I labeled aerobic workout under the stacks. This is from the Tribune Review.
This is okay. Trump's moves to ease regulations and revive the coal industry bring little relief.
This
is an interesting article.
Yeah. As the Trump administration dismantles programs dealing with climate change, it invokes the suffering of those whose livelihoods depend on coal. But with the end to what has been called the war on coal, Homer City, Pennsylvania, is not any less under siege. And that is a picture of the local football team practicing in Homer City, Pennsylvania.
Well, Homer City is about 50 miles northeast of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And they've got mines there, and they've got this huge power plant there, which has kind of powered the town for 50 years.
Yeah.
But and they're running into trouble now because it's just not competitive anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And Trump is running into trouble because he promised people that they were going to have jobs, and they aren't going to have jobs.
By the way, Homer City is right near Punxsutawney.
There you go.
I think the article says the plant is an albatross to investors and a source of increasing anxiety to the local people.
Did you ever see Groundhog Day?
Many times.
Yeah, I did too.
I always enjoyed it.
It was not filmed in Punxsutawney. Okay, it was filmed in Illinois. Our next item is from Futurism.
Okay. Stanford's ultra-cheap batteries are ushering in a new age in energy.
And this one is just incredible. Researchers from Stanford University have developed a cheap alternative to lithium-ion batteries. They created a sodium-based battery that can store the same amount of energy as lithium-based batteries with less than 80% of the cost. There have been sodium-based batteries in the past, but this new approach may be more cost-effective.
Well, we talked about this last week.
Yeah.
We touched base on it.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're moving along.
They are. Battery technology, the amount of work that's going into studying and coming up with new batteries is just...
It's big.
It's impressive.
The market's there. People realize it. You know?
Okay. Now, we have another picture, and this is from the New York Times.
All righty. Well, let me see if I can find it. And there it is.
There you go.
Lo and behold.
Lo and behold.
How off-grid subsidization could deliver Rwanda's energy targets. And we talked about this last week, too.
Yep. With the government of Rwanda seeking to increase access to electricity to 100% by 2024, sector players say that subsidization of off-grid market will go a long way in reaching energy targets. A system with 3 lights, a 100-watt panel, and 55 amp hours battery goes for $474 outright, or $14.22 per month. Now, I want to point out that is $4.74 per watt. Joseph Mangum systems that he's delivering are being delivered for $1 a watt.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's just a little more than 20%. A little more than 20%.
And these guys are bringing, at $4 a watt, these guys are bringing electricity to people who never dreamed of having it.
Well, they may have dreamed of it, but they certainly didn't have it.
Didn't have a chance. Didn't have a chance.
They didn't have a chance. They might not have dreamed that they would get it. It reminds me a little bit of when I was in high school. I was in a Freedom March, and for whatever reason, I happened to be marching right with the guys who were leading that Freedom March. So I was the only white man in a group that was hugely, locally important black people.
This was back in the Freedom Riders days. Right?
Yeah, and I remember one of them saying, something about there'll never be a black president of the United States. And another one said, oh yeah, there will, but not in our lifetimes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and what I'm thinking about here is there are people who are saying those people are never going to have electricity, or at least there were.
Yeah.
But they will. Times change.
It's coming.
It's coming. Donald Trump.
It's going to change life for everybody down there.
Donald Trump and the Republicans will not always be in power. And what do you suppose is going to happen when they're out of power?
Change is going to happen.
And my guess is if justice comes with the change in power, a bunch of them are going to discover that their fortunes are somewhat different. We are up to a Monday, October 23rd.
This is an interesting article, too. More acidic oceans will affect all sea life. And we got a picture.
We have a picture of mesocosms.
Yeah,
that's a word I never... I looked at it and I thought, mesocosms.
They made it up just for the show.
No, I don't think so. I think that's
the microcosm. This is a mesocosm.
This is a mesocosm.
There must be a magnacosm
or a macrocosm or something. But anyway, it's an
interesting thing. I wish we could talk more about it, but we don't have enough information.
BBC News says all sea life will be affected because carbon dioxide emissions are making the oceans more acidic. A major new report will say, now this report has since come out, I believe, the 8-year study from more than 250 scientists will find that infant sea creatures are more especially harmed. The number of baby cod growing to adulthood could fall to less than a quarter of what it is today. And the article actually said a quarter to as few as a 1/12.
Wow.
And that, of course...
This is scary because
what we're talking about
is a lot of our food supply.
Yeah, and this has nothing to do with climate change, by the way.
Except that the changes, this is through acidification.
Yes.
But they'll be exacerbated by climate change. Or they could be.
Yes. And they're related to climate change in the sense that the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which is causing climate change, is the same material that's causing acidification of the oceans. And it is undeniable that this is going on.
There's a lot of things going on here. We got pollution we're talking about.
Right.
Coastal development.
Right.
Overfishing.
Right.
Agricultural fertilizers.
You can just go on and on and on. When we are destroying the planet, we're destroying our only source of food.
Yeah.
And that means people will starve. We've already got people starving. More will starve. And you know what? There's no line in the sand that says people starving will stay on that side of the line. People who are wealthy could starve if the situation gets bad enough.
That's a possibility.
I remember reading about a situation in Paris during the 19th century when a wealthy man walked into a butcher shop and said, "Do you have any meat I could buy for my cats?" And the butcher said, "Do you have any cats I could buy for meat?"
That's a good one.
Really,
that's a good one.
We've got to pay attention to what we're doing to the planet, and we've got people who are paying politicians to say this isn't so.
We're dependent to a great degree worldwide on fish, on seafood.
Absolutely.
And this is not good news for seafood.
No, the United Nations, by the way, has already addressed this, and they say we should be getting a lot of our protein from crickets and mealworms. I am not kidding.
I believe it. I find crickets and mealworms, the idea, a little bit strange, but...
Well, you think of a cricket and you should say, well, it is a little like a lobster. And
well, in Thailand, they're a delicacy.
They're a delicacy.
I was tempted to try them. I was asked to try them, but I couldn't. I couldn't get them past that nose.
I'll tell you.
Couldn't do it.
The people I've known who have eaten crickets have said
they're good.
Delicious, and they're...
That's what I heard. You're going to like them.
A lovely food source for something like 60% of the world's population already. Huge, huge use.
Well, when push comes to shove, I think people like me will get over their revulsion.
Yeah,
when you're starving, you'll eat a cricket.
Yeah, I've eaten things that had crickets as part of the mix, but I couldn't identify them. Okay, Clean Technica is up next.
Yeah,
we don't have a new picture. That'll come up for the one after.
We got a new way to capture methane at the wellhead.
Yes. Scientists at MIT say they devised a cost-effective way to capture wasted methane and turn it into fuel or chemical feedstocks. Instead of venting it into the air, the process could allow companies to turn that wasted gas into money. Fossil fuel companies are deaf to the plight of the earth. Fossil fuel companies that are deaf to the plight of the earth can hear a dollar bill crinkling at 40 paces.
How true is that?
Yeah, I think that...
We touched on this last week, too. This is an interesting thing to follow.
Yes, it is. Very interesting. Now we're up to this picture, and the picture's going to have a little explanation, and this is also from Clean Technica.
We got a picture here?
We do. The picture.
Yes, we do.
We do?
Yes, we do. I'm on the wrong page.
Now, this is Hurricane Ophelia this is about. And most people in this country don't know anything about Hurricane Ophelia, but Hurricane Harvey was the most destructive hurricane ever to hit the United States in terms of the financial cost. Hurricane Irma was the most powerful hurricane ever to develop in the Atlantic Ocean, as opposed to the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. Hurricane Maria was more intense than either of those two, and Hurricane Ophelia was the fourth hurricane in less than 2 months.
Bing, 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 bing.
Yeah, but that set a record, and it set a record for being just the way it behaved. You want to put that picture
Well, I
back
get
up?
the picture up. I bet you can't find it on the map.
Yeah. Okay.
It's that little red 6-9 symbol on the right.
Yeah, on the
Look
right.
at all the other hurricanes.
All by itself.
Yeah, not supposed to be a hurricane there.
What's the title here?
How unusual it is for Ireland to experience a hurricane. The answer is very unusual.
Very unusual. Hurricane Ophelia paid a visit to Ireland earlier this month with sustained winds of 119 miles an hour. Do you remember any other hurricanes hitting Ireland? Probably not. Ophelia was what is commonly known as an outlier. It was the most powerful hurricane in the eastern Atlantic Ocean ever recorded, and way beyond the norm. So
it's got no right being there.
It's got no right to be there. It's like an Eskimo in Mexico City, dressed up in his parka.
In his parka, yeah.
You know,
near record warm waters south of the Azores help fuel this extremely rare event.
Yeah, and you know what? That water is not going to cool off anytime soon.
As ocean surface temperatures rise, the regions where tropical cyclones can form and intensify are expanding.
Yep.
And that's what's happening right here.
Right. We are up to Tuesday, October 24th. That, by the way, was, and I just put up a picture, but it's not for this article. That, by the way, was just a reminder of the fact that the weather is officially weird.
Government report calls on Trump to act on climate change.
This is interesting. A government report is sounding an alarm over the threat of costs of climate change. The U.S. government has spent more than $350 billion in the last decade in response to extreme weather and fire events, and the GAO report estimated the U.S. would incur far higher costs as the years progress if global emission rates don't go down. So what have we got here? We've got a bunch of accountants telling the government, do something about this. It's real. It's happening. And it's costing a load of money.
And the GAO is the Government Accounting Office. These are the guys that watch the money.
Yeah. These are the guys who officially watch the money. Yeah. They are strictly nonpartisan in terms of the way they approach things. I've never heard the GAO been accused of doing party politics.
Well, I think the way they're constituted is each party contributes to the membership. So they're, by definition, nonpartisan, or bipartisan.
Or if you think about it, it means that by definition we have a two-party system, and that's kind of depressing. But nevertheless, okay. Should we move on?
Yeah, we got a good one coming up here.
This is flooding. The picture is flooding from Hurricane.
Let's get that picture. That's
Harvey
Houston,
in Houston. Yes, that's right. The item came from PV Magazine USA.
Well, we talked above about grid resilience, and this is about it too.
Yep.
The importance of grid resilience during severe storm conditions.
With increasingly powerful storms, the Dominican Republic set a surprising example during September's storms. It used battery-based energy storage to keep its grid operating despite damage to power lines and 40% of its generating assets being forced offline. Now, this was Hurricane Irma that was causing trouble in the Dominican Republic. But even so, the Dominican Republic did better than anybody in the United States.
Well, you had these things in place already.
Yeah.
Duh.
Duh. Why is the United States being outclassed by the Dominican Republic?
Well, I think I touched upon it before. Puerto Rico's been systematically looted.
Yeah, but what about
somebody had to pay for these things?
Yeah,
these guys aren't interested.
Why
in
was the Dominican Republic better off than Texas or Florida?
Yeah, somebody had their thinking cap on.
Yeah, somebody had their thinking cap on in the Dominican Republic. Why don't Americans have their thinking caps on?
Greed.
I think you may be right. You may have figured something out there. Should we go on?
I'm looking quick at the takeaway I got here. Well, I'll pass. Okay. We talked about it already.
Our next item is from Clean Technica, and it is something we just talked about, but we're going to talk about it more.
Well, we got a lot of time left, so we can. It's 17 minutes, and we're
By
almost
golly,
on Wednesday.
we've been really moving. Okay.
Well, we got a lot to talk about in the next item or two.
Yeah, we do.
This one, like I said, you've talked about it already. Declining insect population could lead to an ecological Armageddon.
Massive insect population declines indicate we are, quote, currently on a course for ecological Armageddon, end quote, one scientist said. The causes are unknown, but one likely culprit is widespread use of pesticides. A recent UN report has denounced using pesticides on such a massive scale and claims that the pesticides kill 200,000 people a year.
Well, our takeaway from the article, and it's valid, if we lose the insects, then everything is going to collapse. Insects are an important part of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And another takeaway to make sense, we need to do less of the things that we know have a negative impact, such as pesticides.
Pesticides?
But pesticides are a $50 billion a year business.
Well, we can't abandon a $50 billion a year business just so we want to eat.
Nah. Oh boy! Oh,
I mean,
boy, oh boy.
if you can't get your crops pollinated, most of the crops we grow will not grow. There are a few crops that don't need insects for
like corn.
Like corn. which is GMO in most cases.
And it's horrible on the soil.
And horrible on the soil. I grew up to a large extent in Illinois. Grade school was in Illinois. And one of the things that we learned, because I was in corn country, I mean, I could walk to the local corn farms. I was in town, but it was just a short walk to a cornfield.
Yeah.
And the teacher was very well aware, teachers were very well aware of the fact that we were in a farming community. It was also a suburban community for Chicago, so there were people who commuted. But it was largely farming. And she talked about farming, and she told us there are 3 crops that are particularly difficult on the soil. One is corn, one is cotton, and one is tobacco. Now, what do you do about that?
These are probably the 3 biggest crops we grow in America.
Well, you know, one of the big things that we can grow is peanuts. And the original reason...
They're good for the soil.
Yeah, one of the original reasons for that was because of... because George Washington Carver, George Washington Carver discovered that if you rotate those crops, this was stuff that was known in the Middle Ages, but Americans seem to have forgotten it. On crop rotation. Okay, we're up to Wednesday, October 25th.
Oh, this is a biggie.
This is a big story.
Wait a second, I got to go out and barf.
Yeah, this is a big story. It's not going to go away. I took it from Common Dreams, came out yesterday. And in fact, we've got a picture here. Why don't you put that picture up? I'll read the title while you're doing that. Can you say corruption? Puerto Rico contract for Trump-connected raises concerns. A $300 million contract went out on
no bid
basis to restore Puerto Rico's electric grid, and it was awarded to Whitefish Energy in Whitefish, Montana.
That's what you're looking at.
That's what you're looking at. That's where the people live who are going to be engineering this restoration.
Well, how many people are there?
Well, the company at the time Puerto Rico was hit had 2 employees, and they're going to restore the bid. They're being given $300 million to restore the grid in Puerto Rico. And we should note, by the way, Whitefish, Montana happens to be the home of Interior Secretary Zink, and it happens to be the home of another person who is one of the major owners of Whitefish Energy and a big donor to the Trump campaign. And this is being done out in the open, blatantly. It's like walking into a bank and saying, "Give me your money," to everybody.
Well, it's so obvious what it is. There's nobody can look at this and say it's not corruption.
No, there's no mask involved. They're not covering this up. Yeah. This is an administration that is so thoroughly unschooled on what corruption is that it doesn't even try to hide it.
I think you're right.
And this is a serious problem. We'll get back to it. Let's keep going.
Yeah,
return to that.
Let's go. I guess I'm going to put you up again.
Put me up? Okay, we've got an item from BBC News.
Tesla solar power arrives in Puerto Rico.
Entrepreneur Elon Musk has followed through on his plan to boost solar power resources in Puerto Rico after it was devastated by Hurricane Maria. Mr. Musk's firm, Tesla, has set up solar panels and energy storage batteries at Hospital del Niño, a children's hospital in San Juan. He said on Twitter, this was the first of many such projects.
It's interesting that this article also mentioned the one we just talked about.
The Whitefish.
The Whitefish Power, yeah. Almost exactly the same thing.
Everybody who is talking about Whitefish Power. You know, if somebody doesn't go to prison over Whitefish Power, I will be very surprised.
You'll go to prison before somebody in the Trump administration
What's
does.
that?
You and I will go to prison
I don't think so.
before somebody in a Trump administration
No, I don't think
does.
so. I think the Trump administration, the Republicans, at some point are going to come to the conclusion that they've got to cut and run. And they're already starting to do it.
Well, a couple of guys come out in the last couple of days.
In the last couple of days.
They're not running for office, which is why they can speak freely. But
at some point, somebody is...
there's grumbling within the party, that's
right,
for sure.
And it doesn't look good. And then on top of everything else, you've got people like, I'm thinking Olivia Snowe, but who is the senator from Maine?
Olympia Snowe, right?
Olympia Snowe, but she's
another one.
There's another one, certainly Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. And these people are starting to stand up to the Trump administration on some of the things that they're doing. And,
well, they're looking at their own voters.
They're looking at their voters. At some point, the Republican leadership has got to start dealing with the United States from a loyal point of view. Mm-hmm. Loyal to the United States, not loyal to the fossil fuels industries.
Loyal to oil.
Loyal to oil.
Yep.
And if they don't do that, it just makes things worse.
Do that. Well, let's hit this one. I think is the last item.
This is the last item coming up.
But there's a lot we can talk about.
There's a lot we can talk about.
On Block Island, offshore wind ushers in a new time, quite literally.
Yes. Let's put that up, that picture.
Oh, we got a picture.
We do.
Yeah.
It's a nice picture.
And that is the Block Island
It is the Block Island wind farm.
There's 5 turbines.
This is an extremely interesting article, I think. I'm going to read the thing
first. It's local
first.
for one thing.
Well, yeah. On Block Island, it used to be that electric clocks could not keep time and appliances wore out years ahead of schedule because of Block Island's poor quality electricity, running at anywhere from 59 to 61 hertz. That's a wide margin. That's way, way off what it should be.
Well, people don't realize how critical it is that the grid maintain an average of 60 cycles a second for a day, and they religiously follow that.
Yep. Now powered
I
almost...
calculated it out. There's 5,184,000 cycles per day.
Yes.
And all the major utilities hit that right on the head every day.
Yep.
They might be off it for a little while in the morning. They'll catch up a little while in the afternoon, but in one day, they hit it right on the head.
That's what they try to do. Now, I'm going to read on. Now powered almost entirely by wind turbines, the electric grid is not only more reliable, but higher quality.
Bingo.
Now, if you think about 59 cycles per second, 59 hertz is what that means. Your clock counts the number of cycles per second.
That's how these electric clocks work.
That's how they work. Many of them, not all of them. If
well,
you've got
the plug-in electric clocks all work this way because it just makes sense.
I'll tell you where they don't, and that is in computers. They work on.
Well, they're not plug-in electric clocks.
I know that, but well, they are in a sense. But what happens is the computer converts the incoming power into DC.
Sure.
And the clock is running on DC power using
the computer.
Yeah.
Right.
So the computer will be correct.
Yep.
Unless the battery is bad, which it relies on when the power is
I went to Europe with a group one time, and somebody brought in an alarm clock, and it just wouldn't work at all because Europe's on 50 cycles.
Oh no! But what happens with this 59 hertz or 61 hertz? But if it's 59 hertz,
everything runs slow.
That means that your minute is going to be 59 seconds.
Yeah.
And your hour is going to be 59 minutes. So at 59 hertz, you're going to lose 1 minute every hour, which is 24 minutes a day. And that is absolutely horrible. Now, what the power companies do, and you alluded to this earlier, is they may run a little bit faster at certain times of day, or a little bit slower.
And run a little slower at other times to make up.
When peak power demand is high, as I understand it, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, they actually tone things back a little bit, run a little bit slower.
I'm not aware of that, but I wouldn't argue the point.
Nevertheless, what they try to do, what was the figure again? Number of cycles per day?
5,184,000.
They try to do that in the course of the day. And if they fall behind, they try to catch up so that they can get that in order to keep the clocks accurate.
Bingo.
There's another reason.
It's not just your alarm clock.
Yeah.
There's a lot of clocks in our society that work on that.
And it's not just clocks. It's also these electric motors, for example, if they don't get power at the speed that they want to go, they're
working
overheat.
too hard.
They
They're
will
working
overheat.
harder and they overheat.
And you can have, it's the same thing as a brownout, where the voltage is reduced. You can just fry an electric motor because things are not the way it's designed to be. So the result of this is the people on Block Island had this problem because they had diesel generators, which were on most of the time, but not always.
And they weren't very sophisticated.
They were not sophisticated. Now what do? They bring in wind power.
Which is sophisticated.
Which is sophisticated. And that wind power provides them with something that they never had before.
Yeah,
reliable electricity.
Power.
Yeah, reliable electricity from wind power. What do you know? By golly, who would have thought?
It's not supposed to be, is it? Well, we got a quick takeaway from here. We got enough time to say it, so I'll
go ahead.
On May 1st, Block Island began running on wind power supplied by 5 large turbines that sit 3 miles off the island's coast.
Yep.
All the wind power flows to the substation on Block Island, and Block Island takes the first cut of the freshly made wind power.
In other words, from this wind power, they take as much as they need.
From there, whatever amount of power is not needed by the island at that time gets sent to the mainland via an underwater cable.
Right.
If the turbines are not producing enough electricity to meet the island's demand, Block Island receives mainland power from the grid. So it's a two-way thing.
It's a two-way thing. And when this was put in, one of the things that I remember a lot of journalists really complained about was the fact that electric power on Block Island was so expensive.
Yes.
Using the wind power, it was going to be like 40 cents, 45 cents. I don't remember
It was ridiculously high.
It was very high, 40 cents, 45 cents. And they said, these poor people are being forced to buy this power at 45 cents per kilowatt hour.
They couldn't make it any cheaper.
Well, the thing is,
now.
They had been buying less reliable power that destroyed their refrigerators for 60 cents per kilowatt hour, because that's what it cost to get it from the diesels. They not only did they get better
power. So they were subsidizing this. It was still high.
It was going into the wind power made things much, much cheaper for them. And, they had been bringing in shiploads of oil that were being deposited on the island and burned in diesel generators to give them bad electricity that destroyed their refrigerators and put their clocks off time.
Can't beat that, can you?
Man. And so now they've got this wind power, which is reliable all of a sudden. So we wanted to go back to
we've got a 2.5 minutes
situation in Puerto Rico.
Yep.
We've been talking about Joseph Mangum, and
we mentioned Elon.
Joseph Mangum's GoFundMe site. A link to that site is at the is included. Well, you'll find it at my blog geoharvey.com. If you just scroll down on the most recent date, you're going to find it fairly quickly. It's in big type and it's centered. But you will also find it at the. If you watch this show online, I've put two links.
So the links are on.
One of them is to geoharvey.com. The other one is to Joseph's GoFundMe site.
Okay.
Which is the Sunnyside Solar site. I identify it that way. And what we're seeing here in Puerto Rico is Elon Musk is doing a very good job. Sonnen Battery is doing a very good job. Other people are doing a very good job trying to bring power in. But these are all commercial operations that are doing it for money. Now, it's true that Elon Musk is donating his own money, and I think Tesla may have actually donated the power system for the Hospital del Niño, the children's hospital. But by and large, they're doing things for money, which means people who can pay money are the people who get the power. And the people who are poor and the people who really need it the most, sometimes the only people,
they're a little bit out of the loop.
They're out of the loop. And Joseph is going down there and he's delivering something at a very, very, very low price.
To the people who need it most.
You put $1,000 into Joseph's campaign, it's going to produce a 1 kilowatt solar generator with battery backup and AC for somebody in probably central Puerto Rico.
You couldn't buy that yourself if you wanted to use
No,
one.
you could not.
Yeah.
You could not. And I think that, you know, if people go out and they do that, it's going to make a difference. Every dollar you put into this is going to make a difference. So there you have it, my pitch.
We're out of time.
We're out of time. So
Goodbye, folks.
everybody.